This conference will now be recorded.
I
have
can
drawing
stop
tools.
webcam sharing.
Options. I have
Yeah,
a
I can
screen
stop.
here. If you can stop webcam sharing, then maybe you can.
Let me try. That just stopped your camera.
Oh shit. Okay. Hold on, I'll turn my camera back on.
Okay. Okay.
Just a quick thing I want to call out. I get really nervous when like speaking in front of people and I'm going to ramble. So if I start rambling and I need to kind of cut it short, feel free to ping me and just let me know. I will try to manage it, but I just get really nervous.
Should we have a code word?
So if
okay, we're back in.
I was just gonna say, if there's a code word or something we implement, like I talk way too fast, so feel free to do that one for me.
I can always just kind of like when you come to a natural pause, be like, that's amazing, you know, just for time, like that's so good. If you guys have any more questions for Carissa, Ashley, whatever, like I can do something like that and then we can go straight to that next one. But I think you guys are going to be amazing. You're going to be so good. I know that I get nervous as well, so I'm nervous and I'm not even like answering any main questions.
Code word's banana, guys.
Y'all will be fine. Banana.
Banana. How am I supposed to fit in banana? Can one of you guys just be like, banana?
Code word is code word.
Yeah.
You're killing me. Stop. No.
Yeah, unfortunately, if we have if the code word is said, you can't laugh.
That's going to go poorly.
Yeah.
My nervous laugh, so yep, I'll try.
How do I fit in the code word is banana into something?
Just don't say like a minion, like banana. All right, I'm going to get myself off key. This is 10 o'clock.
Are we ready to go?
So, hey, just super quick before we turn on, are we still working out of the one sheet that's like color coded with the yellow and the green and that stuff?
The second tab of that is where it'll say the order that I'm asking them in.
Yeah, cool, thanks.
Yeah, and it looks like we're having people join. I'd probably start in about a minute or so. Courtney, your show. So
it's already recording. Great. I'll give it one more minute. Welcome to anybody who has joined. We'll give it a minute and then we'll kick off. Now it feels like the longest minute. When you're like 1 minute and then now you're like, This is
pretty theme song.
I love it. Oh, lots of people joining now. This is exciting. We already have some questions coming in. Oh, great. I just now saw that, Jimmy, so I'm glad I didn't start right away. Okay. I think we'll dive right in. People can join if they join a bit late. There's also like the whole screen recording that'll go around. Welcome, everybody. This is our September Marketo Champion Office Hours. We're really excited to have you guys here. It's going to be a really great session. My name is Courtney. I'll do some introductions in a little bit, but I'm going to first go through a few things with you guys. Let me get my thing. There we go. So quick agenda to let you guys know, like I said, we're going to go through introductions and then some very quick house rules, housekeeping, some exciting opportunities to get involved with Marketo and Adobe. And then we're going to get to the meat of everything. And while everybody's here, our Q&A panel. And as you can see, we have some incredible champions on the panel for you guys today. So yeah, my name is Courtney. I've been working with Marketo for almost 4 years. I'm a marketing ops manager for Zuora. I'll be your moderator today. I'm just going to pass over to the other champions to do a quick introduction. So I'll start with you, Carissa, and we'll just go down the line if that's okay.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Carissa Russell, and I am a senior marketing operations analyst for McGraw Hill. I am a two-time champ, and I have roughly 10 years of Marketo experience.
Jessica, we'll go to you next.
Hey everyone, I'm Jessica Meyers. I'm the Director of Marketing Operations and Technology at Tebra. It's a healthcare tech company based in LA. I've been working in Marketo for 5.5, almost 6 years now, and I'm a first-time Marketo champ.
And Ashley, over to you.
Hi everyone, my name is Ashley Angie. I am a senior marketing operations manager at Amazon within the Alexa area of the business. For this role, I led a Marketo support program for a group of over 1,600 Marketo users at AWS. This is my first year as a champion. I am two-time Marketo expert certified, and I've been working with Marketo for about 4.5 years now, but working in the email marketing and marketing automation space for about 10 years.
Amazing. And then last but definitely not least, Jimmy, over to you.
Hey guys, Jimmy Spencer. This is year 11 or 12 for me in Marketo. So I've sort of seen Marketo grow up as I've grown up with it. I'm a marketing automation manager at Verizon. I handle a few platforms there as well as integrations, things of that nature. So that's sort of my sandbox. First time champion, long time listener. So happy to be here with you guys and help answer some questions.
Amazing. Okay, so just some really quick user group house rules. If you've joined any mugs before, this is probably really familiar to you. But just keep our mugs a safe space. Obviously, we're going to be sharing ideas here. There might be proprietary information shared. Anything here, like don't share that information without the consent of whoever's sharing it with you. Don't contact people outside of the user group without that consent again. And then no self-promotion or pitching. We just want a safe space for all of us to share ideas and talk about Marketo. We love it. Quick housekeeping. So the meeting is going to be recorded and it's going to be posted on the Mugs site. The slides will be posted alongside with it, and you'll also get the recording and the slides via email. And then also one thing that's not on here, obviously all of our champs have their cameras on and they're ready to chat with you. If we could ask the audience to keep your cameras off during this first part where we're answering questions, it just makes it a lot easier and a lot less distracting. Saying that, at the end, we're going to have like a Q&A time where it's open time to ask questions. And if you want to jump on the camera, then like we're more than happy for you to. But we ask during this time, just cameras off if that's okay. Upcoming opportunities, come and join our chapter. So if you go to mugs.marketo.com, you can search for any chapters there. You can search for a local chapter around you. And also you can join our Champions Office Hours chapter, and you'll get all the updates of when we're when we're holding office hours to talk with you, and when you can ask questions and upcoming events and things like that. So come join us there. There we go, it's a bit slow. If you want to get certified, if you are certified and you need to recertify, anything like that, just know that Adobe has recently changed the certifications and the name of them, and actually the actual test that is taken as well. So these are the new names for you. Make sure you jot those down. I'd also highly encourage, if you have questions about the certification or anything like that, reach out to a champion, ask them. They'll have experience with that and be able to guide you. There's lots of resources out there, so make sure you do that. I think I might be a little bit frozen on screen, but I'm still here. One I'm very excited to tell you guys about, the Experience Makers Live event is coming up. If you have not already signed up for it, definitely do. There's tons of content tracks for you to get involved with. But here listed for you are the ones on the left-hand side, are the ones for Marketo specific, or that involve Marketo as well. We will get these slides out to you before the 13th, so you don't have to write down the names now, like quickly jotting them all down. All that information will be there for you. But it's a great event to get involved with and attend, and there'll be brain dates with champs involved with that as well. So that's September 13th and 14th, so that's next week. I'm backwards on my dates, and we'll get this out to you before then. quick topics that we're covering. We've got so many amazing questions. So anybody in the audience that submitted a question, thank you. Like there was tons. We're going to get through as many as we absolutely can today. These are just some of the generic topics, but there might be more. Engagement programs and nurturing, lead scoring models, some one-on-one Marketo for anybody new to Marketo or MOPS or MarTech, and then a bit of a wish list at the end where we can talk about, you know, if we could have anything we wanted, what would we get? So yeah, I'm going to not share my screen. I'm going to jump into questions. Here we go. One sec. Pull up. So jumping straight in, let's get started talking about one of my favorite things to talk about, nurture and engagement programs. So Ashley, I'm going to come to you. What are some best practices for building entry, pause, resume steps, anything you can tell us about nurture programs?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest piece of advice I have is just being super, super clear on your objectives for each step of the way before you even start building. Nurtures can get really complicated when you're kind of in there tinkering with things. So I think it's clear to understand before you even jump in and start building things out, you know, what definitive actions really, you know, dictate whether someone enters the nurture, pauses, re-enters, or unpauses rather, and then working backwards from there. I would say, you know, if you can, you know, mapping out even like a flow chart or like an architecture of kind of the ideal customer experience through the nurture is super helpful because it kind of takes the guesswork when you start going in and building out the streams and whatnot. I think, yeah, just the architecture and working backwards, you know, to figure out those definitive actions. That's probably the best piece of advice that I have.
Yeah, no, definitely great. And I think what you mentioned about having a workflow and mapping it out first is really great. So what if you map it out? People are flowing on through your nurture campaign and then your results aren't what they expect. What would you do to like test and improve if things don't go to plan?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is where data is your best friend. So always, anytime you're looking to troubleshoot, trying to pinpoint, okay, if there are maybe 5 people who have behaved in a different way than you initially intended for the nurture to operate, looking into their activity logs, trying to see, you know, like look at any trend, look for any trends, any patterns to try to piece together what may have happened, any discrepancies in data, just any kind of weird nuances. And then once you're able to kind of pinpoint like any patterns, you know, kind of, again, that's where working backwards comes in. Working backwards from there to figure out, okay, how can we prevent this from happening in the future? Do we need to do any data cleanup? Do we need to adjust any of like the flow steps, that kind of stuff?
Perfect.
Can I add something?
Yes, absolutely, you can. Please.
I want to jump into and say I think the best nurtures I've seen are iterative, and so you may have a really great plan and idea when you start about the way you anticipate it going, and then kind of to Courtney and Ashley's point, things may not function as anticipated, or you may take some learnings. And the best nurture programs I've seen have content management where the team is looking at how people are flowing through the nurture, the content, how people are engaging, and making tweaks and adjustments on a regular basis. Even A/B testing within a nurture, comparing different subject lines or different pieces of content, I think is a really great way to ensure that your nurture program continues to drive results for a really long time.
Yeah, I definitely want to plus one that. I think that oftentimes people think of nurtures, they think set it and forget it. You know, once you do the initial grunt work of building it out, just having it run. And while it might be an always on kind of program, you should always be like, you know, at a regular cadence, assessing the data, looking at how things are working, figuring out what works, what doesn't work, and tweaking from there. So it should never be set it and forget it. It should always be iterating.
No, that is actually such a great point. Okay, we're going to stick with nurtures for a minute. And Jimmy, I'm about to put you on the spot. How important is it to have like a fast track through your nurture?
Sure. Yeah. So fast track means different things to different people. So let's just put a little context around it and sort of attack it that way. So like from sort of a 101 perspective, right? Let's say you're relatively new in Marketo or at least relatively new to nurtures. Your concept of fast tracking may essentially be what I like to call escape hatches, right? Ways for people to get out of the nurture, right? So that could be based on anything, right? Level of engagement, have they become a customer? Have they, withdrawn consent, et cetera? Sort of those one-on-one type of elements for fast tracking are very important, right? Because obviously your nurture is such a robust program, generally speaking, right? You're usually looking at long tail content where you're dripping out, 5, 10, 15, 20 emails, maybe more, maybe less, depending on the organization and what you're doing. But it is really, really critical to have those elements sort of thought through beforehand and built in so that you don't kill your metrics on your nurture, right? If you have half of your audience that's just completely disengaged and they've been so for some measurable amount of time, it may be time to just pull them out and try a different tactic, right? So when you do that, when you have those fast track sort of escape hatches for your nurtures, you really improve your understanding of how your nurture is actually performing, right? It's sort of the same concept as when you're looking at your email metrics. And if you just look at the entire database with no conditions around that report whatsoever, then you're going to get a very muddled, muted understanding of how you're performing. So fast tracking in that sort of 101 context is vital, absolutely critical. If for no other reason, just the fact that you want to get people out, if they've withdrawn consent or something sort of operational like that, but also for just clarity and really being able to gauge how your program is really working. Now, if you sort of move that up to instead of 101, let's call it, Marketo 301, you're a little bit more advanced. For other people, fast tracking really means something along the lines of an acceleration or deceleration of that content being doled out to your audience, right? And that's different for every audience. That's different for every organization. So really, when we say 301 or when I say 301, it is sort of an advanced way of going about things. You want to have some data to start with to sort of understand, generally speaking, how your nurture performs and how people engage with it. And then, going back to some of the things that like Jess and Ashley were saying about, testing and trying things out, what you can begin to do is you can start accelerating or decelerating that nurture using sort of an outside program that helps, do pauses and unpauses and things like that to really move them through it quicker or more slowly, depending on how they're performing. So, those are sort of the two main contexts that immediately came to mind to me in terms of fast tracking. But if anyone has anything else, I'm all ears.
Perfect. I was going to say, does anybody?
Okay.
Not putting anybody on the spot by any means. Okay, we'll keep going then. No worries, because we have lots of questions. So don't worry if we're just going through them. All right, Jessica, I'm coming to you next. I've got a good one for you. Somebody has asked us, what are the must-have operational programs for all Marketo users to have? Data normalization, management, anything. What can you throw at us? What are your must-haves? And then anybody else that might want to think of if they have any must-haves as well.
I really love this question, and I thought for a long time about the answer. I think one of the really great things about Marketo is that it serves so many industries and so many people in so many stages of maturity. And so, not to kind of cop out, but the answer to this one is definitely, it depends a little bit. It depends a little bit on your own company's buying journey, your own company's buyer persona, where your company is from a maturity standpoint. So I want to generalize to a kind of couple of big buckets. I think the first big operational bucket that every Marketo instance should have is operational programs related to email preference management. That might be consent from a GDPR, a CCPA, et cetera standpoint. At the bare minimum, that may also be subscription center. What product or products are they interested in? What types of communications are they getting? What frequency are they getting those communications? So general subscription communication management is, I think, a must-have for all instances. I think another big one is ideally data management, but that can really vary depending on your industry or your target addressable market. I know a number of people who use Marketo who are in kind of a unique space, and data management isn't at all relevant or important for the way they use the tool. So if you're in kind of the traditional B2B space, I think data management and data normalization is a great one. I think generally managing the sync between your CRM is the other big operational program I would have. Again, assuming your Marketo is connected to a CRM, but managing that sync and managing where people are in their buying journey. I'm going to kind of generalize and traditionally call it your lead life cycle, but I know everyone calls it something slightly different. So where is somebody in their engagement with your sales or success team? Can kind of be bucketed in that sync management aspect of things. I'm also going to kind of go off the script here and say, I think program templates, they're not necessarily an operational program, so to speak, in that they're governing systems and processes, but I think they're absolutely instrumental for a successful Marketo instance. And they're a great way at ensuring everyone, all of the end users in your Marketo instance are building to best practice, building a webinar that doesn't over communicate with your prospects, building an email program that respects that beautiful subscription center you built previously, making sure that your emails have all of the legal information required in the footer. And so I think program templates are the other big operational item that all Marketo instances should have. But I want to toss this one out. Carissa, Ashley, Jimmy, I'm curious what you guys think.
Yeah, I think you covered a lot of really great points there. And I think one thing that I would add that's also sort of outside the box a little bit, coloring outside of the lines, are helper fields. And I know, some people use them, some people don't, but I'm a really big fan of installing some sort of visual cue for myself in the activity log to see, sort of when certain processes kick off. Because I think, as everybody knows, if you have a really complex, set of processes that sort of fire off when new records in your database, or when they hit certain thresholds, et cetera, you can have a lot of processes that are firing off, which leads to a lot of breakpoints, right? There's a lot of ways that things can fail, especially if you're tying a lot of processes together. So I like to have like a couple of note fields where I can sort of make as part of my flow, like, here's what's happening right here right now, or here's like sort of the next step, or whatever it may be, right? Usually I'll put in a bunch of characters to sort of push it out into the activity log a little bit, and then have like a nice descriptor. And I'm such a huge fan of those, just because it makes troubleshooting so much easier, and it also extends out to your users as well, right? If they sort of have an understanding of what they're looking for, if you try to push them to self-serve and you try to tell them, hey, before you come to me, hey, look at the documentation, look at this, there's another piece for them to look at to sort of get an understanding of, well, what's going on? Why did my record not do this? Why did they not get pushed over, et cetera? So that's something that I would add that I think's a great value for folks.
I want to plus one a few things that Jessica had flagged. And Jimmy, I love the idea of helper fields. I think that simplifies things significantly in the activity log. And I think, any kind of documentation that you can have, or just kind of like clues along the way in an activity log to help troubleshoot issues, is largely helpful. But one thing that Jessica mentioned was data normalization. I can speak from personal experience that it is far more difficult to do like a big one-time cleanup of data rather than routinely normalizing the data. So it's super, super important to make sure to have those data normalization, like operational programs. And I think also I love that you highlighted program templates as well, because I think that is a surefire way to make sure that people are kind of snapping to a similar operating model, making sure that you're maintaining best practices. And also, like using those program templates, like you can always iterate on it and tweak it, as you look to improve certain things in your instance. But yeah, just wanted to plus one those.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to plus one that as well, just because program templates are so awesome for if you have new people on board, if you're trying to have documentation, just having that kind of standardization, especially if you're moving instances or you're coming into a new role. I want to plug the Marketo community because there is a ton of documentation on there for best practice suggestions on how to build program templates. So if it's your first time running a webinar, there's awesome documentation and great stuff you can just follow. And it just makes bringing people up to speed and having everyone be able to step in and help each other just a lot more streamlined.
I want to add one just quick tip. I've heard a lot of great options around documentation over my years in Marketo, but one of my favorites, especially with program templates, is leveraging the description field within Marketo to link to relevant documentation for end users. So not only do they have a really easy program template that's relatively self-service, but right in the UI, they have a link to how to use it and how to build using the program template. That's one trick I really like.
Yes, +2, +3.
No, that's excellent. Like, oh, I've loved this conversation. I've never used helper fields, taken that one right away. Like, definitely. It's interesting, Jessica, just to come back to when you were saying, like, if your instance is connected to your CRM. I've worked in an instance that wasn't, and data normalization saved our life. Because if not, there was just so much stuff coming in from different places because it was not like connected 360. So, guys, that's amazing. I'm going to keep this ball rolling for us. Chris, I'm coming over to you next. Tell us some resources you have for Marketo email and landing page templates, and then any pointers you have for emails and accessibility, anything like that.
Yeah, so I absolutely love this question because before I was in automation, I was a front end developer. So I think because of that, it kind of helped me just get my feet a little quicker, because Marketo is not only robust for data management, but it has a lot of those flexible options like being able to build landing pages and emails and interact with your customers and track that. So it's really a twofold question because while landing pages and emails are both Marketo assets, they're very different from a front end perspective. Marketo recently released guided landing page templates, and I think that offers a lot of teams that may not have front end experience just an easier way to get those landing pages out, get those emails out. They don't have to have any code expertise as long as they have a really solid guided template. There's a lot of different options for getting those. Some businesses partner with agencies who do custom development for very specific instances. There's third-party companies out there who provide out-of-the-box templates that are guided. So you could pick one of those, or you can, work with them to customize something, but you have a good starting point. Also, if you search on the Adobe Experience League, if you search for guided templates, Marketo actually provides a huge number of guided templates that you can just put right in the program. From a technical perspective, Marketo templates function very much like other CMS templates with variables and tokens to make those things display. So if you do have someone on your team with front-end experience, it's pretty easy to kind of tweak it and go from there. Emails, there is an added degree of complexity here because you're not only dealing with the HTML from the, I see the faces. We all know this pain very, very specifically. But because you're working with the client that they're viewing it in as well. So whether that's a mobile device, whether it's a desktop client, or one of the tons of different email services that put their own added layer of complexity on top of an email. To make sure that your templates display properly, I highly recommend going with a third-party service like Litmus or Email on Acid. There's a bunch of them, but a unique feature of that product is being able to test your email templates and see how it's displaying in like Outlook 2003 on a desktop or Gmail on an iPhone 11. It's very important to make sure that your emails are going to render the best that they can on however your customer is looking at them. And as far as accessibility, you definitely want to adhere to normal web best practices. So making sure your templates are responsive, making sure that you have alt text in all of your images and landing pages and email. I would definitely say for email, additionally, make sure that they're very descriptive. If you are sending image heavy emails, make sure that that alt text on that image can be read by a screen reader and it's very explicit on what it's showing. Deliverability clients will actually deliver your email more often if you have these things in place. So if your email is accessible and it has those very robust descriptions, it's going to get to your person a lot easier. Also, you can, in the Marketo UI, you can create a text version of the email so you don't need any HTML experience. Same for adding the alt text. You could just do that directly in the UI and make sure that you have that text version and you have your alt text in, and then make sure that it's responsive so it's displaying across all your devices.
Brilliant. Guys, this is so juicy. There's so much good information here. I'm going to shift it up a bit now and talk about scoring. Love it. Jimmy, can you talk to me about if you have a really like complex scoring model, or if you have multiple products, let's say, in your scoring model, do you have multiple MQLs? What would you say?
Yes, absolutely. So, you know, if you're really trying to, if your goal is to sort of communicate with sales what someone has shown interest in, then it's really important to have those individual score fields, right? Part of the question that was posed to us was, do you want to create all of those, additional score fields in Salesforce? I would say that that really depends, right? It depends on the level of detail that your sales folks really want. Do they want 3, 4, 5 additional new fields that have this integer in them? Does it have meaning to them? Is it something that they can contextualize and process, during the craziness of their, each and every day for them when they're prospecting and reaching out to clients? So, that's sort of a conversation that you have to have with them. I think what a lot of people end up doing is instead of translating those Marketo fields directly over to Salesforce, what they'll do instead is sort of have like an indicator or like a leading field, right? Something that says, okay, well, this was what pushed somebody over the threshold for us to send them to you, right? So it could be something that just says this is what they're interested in. This is the product tower that they have the highest score in, et cetera, right? It could be a number of things, but those are, sort of your general ideas there. And I think the idea is give them something really explicit, something very, very straightforward that they don't have to think about, they don't have to process. They really just look at that information and they have an understanding of these are the solutions or products or services, whatever, that this person has shown interest in. Okay, maybe I have MSI. Let me go back and take a look at, what they've engaged with, et cetera. And it just makes their jobs a little bit easier, especially if they're sort of in a high volume environment where they're doing, tons and tons of outreach per day. So in terms of what goes over to Salesforce, have that conversation, absolutely. Speak with sales leadership, speak with some of your champions over in sales, see what makes sense to them, and then test it out and pilot it, right? If you have a good relationship with your Salesforce team and you're able to do that sort of thing, they may be able to set up some limited profiles for you where certain sales folks sort of, get this new profile, test it out, and give you feedback, before you roll it out wide, which is, always how I try to go about things if I have the resources and the time to do so. In terms of, what else you can do with the scores, you may find that you want to do some comparisons, right? You want to say, well, all right, how do I derive this leading indicator, right? I have 6 scores here and they're all different, but I don't really have a good way to say which one is the highest, right? Or which one has changed the most recently. And that's where you sort of have to rely on some external tools, right? So you may end up having an API connection to another platform that will do that evaluation for you and then push sort of the assessment back to you, right? So then you can, sort of have that data in a more actionable context. So when it comes time to, perhaps have a targeted nurture or, have information for that MQL that you want to send over to Salesforce, you can do so in sort of a more refined manner.
That is brilliant. Okay, I just want to pause for a minute and let you guys know on the audience, because I forgot to say something earlier. Obviously, these resources are going to be sent around to you, but if you notice in the chat, our fellow champion Chris is giving you guys all kinds of juicy stuff over there. So if you want to, you can, go to those. It will be provided in the slides afterwards that we send out to you. But I've just seen it going up, and there's so much goodness over there for you. Okay, continuing on, Ashley, what are some best practices for a new Marketo user? And I think this is one, if anybody else has anything to dive into, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, anything to dive into at the end of this too, because there'll be lots of good tips and tricks out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the number one thing that I tell any new Marketo user is give yourself some grace. Marketo is a very, very robust tool. It's a lot to learn. It's kind of like drinking from the fire hose at first. So give yourself a little bit of grace as you're starting your Marketo journey. I would say, the next thing is getting curious, right? Like 9 times out of 10, if there's something that you want to do in Marketo can do it. So I know that I've thrown out the idea of working backwards a lot, but having a clear objective of what you want to accomplish and then trying to connect the dots, kind of working backwards from that is always helpful. I think one of the best ways, and this is frankly the way that I learned Marketo, is to jump in and get your hands dirty. So if there's like a training environment, like a training workspace or a collaboration workspace, or like even a sandbox environment that you can leverage, don't be shy, go in there, tinker with things. And the reason I say in a training environment is it's usually low stakes. You can't send out any campaigns like unnecessarily, but definitely don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. And then just the biggest thing is like knowing your resources. There are so many resources out there for, how to ramp on Marketo. So not only like the Experience League documentation, but I know that we've plugged the Marketo community a lot, the knowledge base. There's tons of like great information in there, like blog posts, other Marketo users who have posted questions or like challenges that they've run into. It's a really good brain trust for just kind of working through specific challenges. Another thing is like, don't be afraid to Google. That's like, I still to this day, sometimes I come across things and I'm like, I really don't know how to work through this. So don't be afraid to Google it and see kind of what comes up. I've had it happen where like, if I see a funky error message on like a batch or a trigger or in a person's activity log, and I'm like, what the heck does that mean? Just literally copying the error message and Googling it. Sometimes you can glean some insights on, what that exact error message means, or, similar kind of things that other people have run into. And then, when all else fails, Marketo support is a great resource. So when you kind of try to chase down answers and you're just not really coming up with anything, Marketo support is great. It can also be very reaffirming because they can say, oh yeah, this is a weird thing. Let me help you figure this out. So I think just knowing all the resources that are available to you is a great way, in conjunction with kind of diving in and getting your hands dirty, to really like learn how to ramp on the tool.
Definitely. I'm just going to jump in and +1 all of that, and also say, don't be afraid to reach. I think I mentioned it this again. Don't be afraid to reach out to any of the champions as well. Like I did that when I very first started. I just had like no shame with it and would reach out and be like, have you ever worked on this? And made some great connections with that. But then they were so happy to send me the right way. Usually it was always, sending me a blog that they found that was on it, or there's YouTube videos or anything. But just don't think, if you ever come across somebody, it doesn't have to be a champion either, somebody within your organization or just that you see on LinkedIn that looks to have a lot of experience. The community is really, really open. So, ping them a message. They may not come back. They may be really, really busy, but it's not a personal thing then. It's, just put yourself out there and ask the question, because there's no stupid questions.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say, especially with the champions, like there is no one that loves to nerd out on Marketo more than this group. And so we love helping people learn how to, to increase their knowledge with Marketo. So don't be afraid to reach out to any champions or power users that you know.
I want to +1 what Ashley said at the beginning too, of starting at the end and working your way backwards. I think one of the biggest, most tangible pieces of advice I can give to newer Marketo folks is to ask and understand the why behind a request and really understand what the business impact of something you're working on will be. I think when you start learning Marketo, it's so easy to be really excited about knowing how you may solve something or how you may do something without necessarily pausing to question why. And understanding the end goal and the end result, I think, will usually lead you to appearing really intelligent and well respected in your org, and B, designing the best solution.
Yeah, there's like a million and one ways you can do certain things in Marketo, but I think having a core understanding of the why helps you get super clear on like, okay, well, I could do this one way, but the best way to help things scale or to help, increase efficiency is approaching this in a different way.
Yeah, and I think the only thing I would add to that, because I think it's all fantastic advice, is just to kind of try to even like just play around with the product, because as long as you're starting from that, end goal, and there's a lot of unique ways that you can figure out to support it within Marketo, because it can do a lot. I've definitely used webhooks in some very interesting ways to be able to like cap events by counting up a number. So, there's, as long as you understand what the tool is, or even just browse on the community, maybe somebody else is up against that exact same problem and they have a solution right there for you ready to use. I think you're still on mute, Courtney.
Thank you. You wouldn't think I work with a laptop all day. And I haven't joined meetings for years now. Okay, thank you. I'm going to piggyback on this topic. I'm going to stick with something that you said, Jessica, about that newer MOPS professional wanting to, add value, show their worth, everything like that. So how would you say, if they're working in automation, how do they show that value, tie it to the revenue, tie it to what counts?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of ways, and I think that probably everyone who works on a MOPS team or leads a MOPS team has thought about this in some way, shape, or form. Generally, the way I help my team show value is twofold. One, we focus on time saved for others. That may be time saved for other marketers. Maybe we built a really robust program template that took creation of a webinar from 5 hours down to 1 hour because we used tokens and really streamlined our smart campaign creation process. I think about then how many webinars do we run a year? Great, we saved, maybe we run a webinar every 2 weeks. That's 26 webinars a year, and we saved 4 hours a webinar of time. That's a lot of time saved over the course of 1 year, not to mention how much that compounds years down the road. So time saved for other people. I think that can also translate to sales folks. So maybe they used to have to spend 30 minutes every time they got an MQL sifting through Marketo Sales Insight or multiple scoring fields to understand what the person did to MQL. And if you streamline that into a really simple alert or a quick task for them with all of the relevant info, you can really save folks a lot of time. That's one way. I think the other way teams can metric themselves and show impact is translating the marketing activities to revenue and then weighing kind of their contribution to each of those activities. So if you're in kind of a traditional org where you're measured on revenue, maybe our webinars lead to, X percent of ARR per webinar or X dollars of ARR per webinar. And our setup time for each of those was this. And so kind of translating the percentage of time we worked on that to a percentage of revenue is, I think, really, really beneficial. I also think quality of MQL is another one that MOPS folks can measure their success on. So maybe you reduced the number of leads you're passing over to the sales team, or increased, hopefully, and the quality got better. So your MQL to like down funnel conversion rates are improving. I think that's another great way that folks can show impact.
I lost my mouse there, trying to get my mic back. We're like 2 for 2 now. No, that's brilliant. I +1 all of that. Just to be cognizant of time, I want us to be able to get through a few more questions that we had and then open it up to everybody. So, Carissa, because you have this front end dev experience, and also because Marketo recently in some of the past releases introduced a lot of exciting things with forms, let's talk about form integration, spam protection. What are some best practices you have for us?
Carissa, you're on mute.
I am on mute. Thank you. It got me back there. I saw the thanks. I think when it comes to forms, it's important to keep just general form best practice in mind first and foremost. So using the fewest possible fields. Marketo forms are responsive by default, but make sure that the page that you're placing them on is as well. That's going to make your user experience a lot easier. On the back end, there are definitely a couple different things you can do. I usually recommend people considering a master form system. If you're creating a new form for every single request you get, it really makes it more difficult to scale. It makes it more difficult to track down or archive things when they're necessary, when campaigns are done. So, break down your requests by type. Like you have a webinar form you use across all your pages. You have, a contact sales form you use across all your pages. Just kind of do your general types. It really helps with scalability and also helps with like your time spent managing those. A way you can keep your form fields down too is tracking your attribution through hidden fields and URL parameters. To kind of touch on the question that Jessica just answered, it's also a great way to prove, that multi-touch campaign attribution. So if you have a form in your campaign and people are filling that out, you can attribute it back by very specific parameters that you put as a hidden thing on the form so your user never even sees it. I've always been a fan of honeypot fields. There is instructions on how to do this in the Marketo community, but it's basically a hidden field that catches bot fills. So if you have a form that you're getting a lot of spam from it, you're not sure where it's coming from, you can create rules on the back end using a honeypot field to kind of segment those people out, pause them so they're not going to onboard to any nurtures, just really have a fine control over that. And Courtney, what you referenced, Marketo's reCAPTCHA, the reCAPTCHA and the form validation, the global form validation is awesome. These are really great tools. The form validation was just recently rolled out. There's a lot of people just kind of diving into this, and it's awesome because that is going to dramatically reduce a lot of that noise that you get when you are looking at your form fills.
Also,
Brilliant.
tying it back to one of our very first questions, I think we talked about data normalization. Pick lists are great on forms as a way to control the data at the beginning, so you aren't having to normalize a bunch of open text fields.
Great point.
Yes.
Plus 1,000 on that.
I love it. All right, guys, I've got one last question. This is going to be for all champs on the call. But before I ask this, I just want to say, guys, next we're going to open it up to any questions. I can already see some coming through. If you have any questions, jump over to the chat now and type them in. We'll try to get through as many of those as we can as well. But before we jump onto that, somebody asked, what Marketo features are you holding out for, or would be your dream Marketo feature? And we're going to go round robin. So I'm just going to go in the order that I can see you guys. I'll start with you, Jessica.
Yeah, the feature I'm most waiting for is one that is on the roadmap. And the thing I'm most excited about is about a year or two ago, Marketo rolled out program member custom fields. So essentially on an individual program, you can capture specific information. I think these are great for events and many other things, but maybe you don't want to create a field in your instance for their t-shirt size or their meal preference or something that you might need for an in-person event. I'm really excited about the ability to sync those to Salesforce campaigns. I think the program member custom fields have a ton of use cases, and I've seen some really creative ones with source and attribution info. And I can't wait to natively sync those to Salesforce campaign member fields.
Excellent. Ashley, I'll come to you next.
I would say the ability to connect forms with custom objects. So storing data in a one-to-many capacity, that would be huge, and I'm holding out for it one day.
No, that's really great too. Just to kind of ask about that, where would you be, how would you decide like the single source of truth? Would it be like one to many, obviously objects within one single person, and then how do you decide that single source of truth? Not to put you on the spot, just because I love that idea.
Yeah, I haven't workshopped that idea quite yet. But I think, I think it's thinking about like my organization and how we would utilize that. I think that, trying to figure out like if we need to capture certain kind of like ID numbers that are associated with a single record, being able to like submit those, like somehow I haven't. I'm tripping over my words because like I
No, you're
haven't
not.
quite
You're
workshopped
absolutely
it, but
fine.
I've thought about it a lot, but it's not fully baked yet.
No, please, no, sorry. I
You're
didn't mean to. I just love that idea. I love that idea. And then with Jessica's, it's really interesting because with yours, me coming from an instance that wasn't connected to Salesforce, my number one would actually be being able to export those program member custom fields easier, because you can export them, but then it's just through a very manual export. I just want a subscription list that brings them to me, but they weren't there yet. So these ideas are great. We're going to keep going. Jimmy, what's yours?
Sure. So stop me if you've heard this one before. Okay. I just inherited this legacy instance of Marketo. It's old. There's lots of things happening that I don't know about. And I just got this piece of data that's being updated. Someone's told me that it's been updated for the last 6 months and it's incorrect. What do I do now? You say, well, okay, let me search for it, right? And then you start searching. The first place you go is the activity log, and you're looking, and you're like, okay, well, here it is. Oh, okay, this got updated by an API. And then you go and you open up the activity information, and all it says is it's been updated by a web service API. And you're like, oh, drat, that doesn't help me at all. I've got 1,000 API connections. Which one is it? Where is this coming from? And unfortunately, my predecessors left me no documentation. So if you've ever been in that position, as I'm sure many of you have, wouldn't it be nice if on that pane of information, the modifying user was there and, which it is in most cases, and in your flow, you can use, hey, this data was updated by an API by this modifying user, right? So you're like, getting the power to use processes to see exactly who is updating this information and when, and then being able to sort of reverse engineer things. So when some old rickety process finally breaks down and you don't have any information on it, you can figure out, okay, well, which one of my launch point services do I need to go and deactivate, or at least which tree do I start barking up when it's time to figure out what's going on with this data? So that's my big thing. The modifying user, make sure that it's always on the activity log, which in most cases it is, but there are some weird cases where it doesn't get added. And then also making sure that it's available in your flows, in your smart campaigns, your smart lists, where you can actually go in and constrain by that. That is my hope and my dream. I have an enhancement request that's 2 years old with Marketo for this right now, and I wait with bated breath.
I love it. You're literally like, anybody over at Adobe, are you hearing me right now? I'm making it really obvious for you.
Just give it to me, please.
That is brilliant. All right,
Yeah.
Carissa, how about yours?
Oh, see, you guys have these amazing, like, great technical wins that make Marketo even more of like a sparkly program to use. But I am going to be the basic B of the bunch, probably because it appeals to my OCD. But honestly, Jimmy, if you just inherited an instance, you'd probably like it too. I would really like to be able to delete like all of the smart lists in a folder or deactivate campaigns in mass. I feel like that would be just such an amazing time saver, because if you inherit things, or you're working with something that you didn't start, like, it just makes it so much easier to clean up all the noise, and that would be a massive help in my opinion, although not as sparkly as every other suggestion we just had.
Yeah,
No,
it would
that's
I
be
don't
huge.
know. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That
it
was
would
yeah.
be great to complete those bulk actions without having to do some kind of manipulation via the API. Like
Yes.
huge time saver.
Yes.
Mhm. You know, one
Definitely.
day, it was one of my first days at an organization that shall remain unnamed. I had a legacy Marketo instance, and I spent the better part of 2 days deleting old, unused smart lists because their instance, people don't think about this, right? And usually it's only in the most heinous of cases that it really matters. But if you have just a complete bombardment, just if you're drowning in really big, complex smart lists, it can really slow down your instance. And this instance of Marketo was so painfully slow that essentially nobody wanted to work in it. So I spent 2 days, like one by one. I probably deleted like 400, 500 smart lists that were just, just years and years old. But they were also huge, right? They were covering like, all of them were covering like between like 70 and 90% of the database. So I just went through and like cleared them all out. And then magically everyone's like, "Oh, this is running so much better. What did you do?" And I'm like, "I'm magic. Thanks."
Well, I feel like that's one of those things that people will like throw together smart lists just to try to like, figure out like an audience count or just try to deep dive something and then they forget about it. But like
Hmm.
smart lists are always running. They're always running in the background and always like pulling new counts. And so it does create like a lot of strain on the system. So
Yeah.
good piece of advice is just make it a part of your process. If you're using a smart list, once you're done using it, just can it, just get rid of it.
Yeah. Or yeah, what if they came with like an expiration on them, right? Like if they're not if they're not used and they're X,
Love
months
that.
old, like just automatically delete. That would be cool too.
I love that.
I'm
Or
with
you could
you.
mark it as
I'm with you.
operational if you wanted to keep it, and then it wouldn't
Yeah.
apply to
Yeah,
the delete
yeah.
rules. That would be awesome.
Because that's
Marketo,
what
do
I
you
was just
hear us?
about to say. I was about
100%.
to say, like, I've spent a lot of time setting up some yearly reporting that we needed in these smart lists. And then if I had to do that every year again because they had
No.
deleted. But yeah, operational versus not. I love this idea. You guys, we're
Hmm.
on to something. Okay. We have only just a few minutes left. Thank you all so much. I'm going to jump over to the chat and go back up to I saw. So we have a question. Robin says, what are the best ways to track organic traffic for attribution? And I throw this out to all of you champs. Anybody can jump in.
Hidden fields. For sure. I mean, we use a lot of that, and we actually use it through Google Analytics currently to kind of help track that attribution, and then even give it some of that info to like the web team where MSI handles it, translating that to the sales team. Like Google can help translate that to our other marketers. So hidden fields have been like invaluable for that.
Visible is also great. Visible will tell you sourcing information for various web touch points, including what organic and what search engine they came from for organic traffic. So if you haven't explored Visible, that would also be another suggestion.
Okay, brilliant. Well, I think we are coming to the end of our office hours this month. Champs, thank you so much. That was amazing. Like there's so much takeaway, even for me. I'm like, yes, this is such good info. I just want anybody on the call, if your question wasn't answered, I'm so sorry we didn't get to it, but feel free to, like I said, reach out to any champs and hopefully they'll be able to answer, or you can send questions to me and I can kind of collate and send them across to all of them, because I know that there were definitely more questions we saw come in that we wanted to answer, but it's a short time. And we will have office hours again next month, so come join there too. Yeah, thank you guys so much. This has been great.
Thank you,
Thanks
everybody.
all.
Thanks, everyone.